My ex-wife whispered. I have nowhere left to go, but she was still in her wedding dress, and it wasn't me she was supposed to marry today. I'm Daniel Cole, and 3 years ago, this woman walked out of our marriage and left me hollow. Rachel was my whole world, but she traded it for another man, a man I introduced her to myself. So when I opened my door this morning and found her standing on my porch in a white wedding gown, mascara bleeding down her face, every wound I'd buried tore wide open. She was supposed to be saying "I do" to Marcus Wade right now, but instead, she's shaking on my doorstep, clutching a bouquet she never threw, whispering that she has nowhere left to go. What did she see 15 minutes before walking down that aisle that sent her running back to the husband she destroyed? Why would a bride abandon her own wedding to knock on the door of the man she betrayed? And the question burning a hole through my chest as I look at the woman who broke me. Do I let her in, or do I finally close the door for good? I didn't open the door right away. I just stood there with my hand frozen on the handle, staring at her through the gap, my coffee still warm on the kitchen counter behind me. The morning had been so ordinary. Birds outside, sunlight on the floor, the radio playing low, and then a knock, 3 soft taps, and the whole world tilted sideways. Rachel, in a wedding dress. The same woman who once folded her clothes into a suitcase and walked out of my life without looking back. She was trembling, not crying loudly, not making a scene, just shaking, the way a leaf shakes right before it falls. Her white gown was smudged with dirt at the hem, like she'd been running. One of her heels was scuffed. Her hair, pinned up so perfectly for a wedding, was coming loose on one side. And her eyes. Her eyes were the eyes of someone who had just watched their entire life shatter on the floor. "Daniel," she whispered, "please. I should have felt nothing. For 3 years, I had practiced feeling nothing. I had rebuilt myself piece by piece after she left, taught myself how to sleep in a bed that suddenly felt too big, how to cook for one, how to stop reaching for my phone to text her things that made me laugh. But standing there, looking at her broken on my porch, I felt everything come rushing back at once. The good and the bad, the love and the wound, all of it. "What are you doing here, Rachel?" My voice came out rougher than I expected. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her hand tightened around the bouquet she was still holding. White roses, crushed now, petals falling one by one onto my doorstep. "You're supposed to be getting married today," I said, "to Marcus." The name tasted like poison in my mouth. Marcus Wade, my colleague, the man I had introduced her to at a company party, smiling, proud, never imagining I was handing my own wife to the man who would steal her. At the sound of his name, something in Rachel's face crumpled completely. "I can't," she choked. "I can't go back there. I have nowhere left to go." And then her legs gave out. I caught her before she hit the ground. I don't even remember deciding to move. My body just did it, the way it used to, automatically, the way you catch someone you've loved for years. She collapsed into my arms, and I felt how cold she was, how thin, how the whole weight of her was shaking. For a moment, I just held her there in the doorway, this woman in a wedding dress who had destroyed me, now falling apart in my hands. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Okay, come inside." I don't know why I said it, maybe because no matter what she had done, I couldn't leave a human being broken on my doorstep. Maybe because somewhere underneath all the anger, a part of me had never stopped caring. I helped her to the couch, the same couch where we used to watch movies until midnight. The same couch where, 3 years ago, she told me she was leaving. She sat down slowly, like every movement hurt. Her white dress spread out around her, and against the worn brown cushions, she looked impossibly out of place, like a photograph from someone else's life dropped into mine. I got her a glass of water. My hands were shaking too, though I tried to hide it. "Drink," I said. She took it, but didn't drink. She just stared at the floor. "Rachel," I sat down across from her, keeping distance between us, like that distance could protect me. "Talk to me. What happened?" For a long time, she didn't answer. The clock on the wall ticked. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. The roses in her hand kept dropping their petals. Then, in a voice so small I almost missed it, she said, "I saw them. My chest went tight. Saw who? She lifted her eyes to mine, and they were full of a pain I recognized, because it was the same pain she had put in my eyes 3 years ago. Marcus, she whispered, and Amber. The room went silent. Amber, her best friend, her maid of honor, the woman who was supposed to stand beside her at the altar and hand her the ring. 15 minutes, Rachel said, her voice cracking apart word by word. 15 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. I went to find him. I just wanted to see his face before everything. I wanted one quiet moment. She pressed her hand over her mouth, like she could stop the words from coming. The door was open just a little, she went on. I heard laughing. I thought, maybe his friends were in there, so I pushed it open. She stopped. I didn't push her. I just waited, my heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. They didn't even see me at first, she whispered. They didn't even know I was there. My husband, the man I gave up everything for, and my best friend, the two people I trusted most in the entire world. A tear slid down her cheek, carrying a black line of mascara with it. In 1 second, she said, I lost both of them. At the same time, in the same room. And there it was. The thing that had sent a bride running from her own wedding. The thing that had brought her to the door of the husband she betrayed. I felt a strange, terrible storm rising inside me. Part of me, a dark part I wasn't proud of, wanted to say, now you know how it feels. Part of me wanted to remind her that she had done this exact thing to me, that she had looked me in the eye for 4 months while she was with Marcus, and never once told the truth. But another part of me, the bigger part, the part that scared me, just saw a person who was hurting. Why did you come here? I asked quietly. Of all the places you could have gone, why me? She looked up at me, and what she said next went straight through my heart like a blade. Because you're the only person who never lied to me, she whispered, even when I lied to you. And just like that, 3 years of carefully built walls began to crack. I stood up fast, turning away from her, walking to the window. I needed to breathe. I needed to not look at her face, because looking at her face made it too hard to stay angry, and my anger was the only thing that had kept me standing for 3 years. Outside, the morning went on like nothing had happened. A neighbor watered his lawn. A kid rode by on a bike. The whole ordinary world, completely unaware that inside this little house, 2 broken people were sitting in the wreckage of everything they used to be. You shouldn't be here, Rachel, I said to the glass. I know. You hurt me. My voice shook. You have no idea how much. I know, she whispered again. I know, Daniel. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you for anything. Her voice broke completely. I had nowhere left to go. There was that phrase again. Nowhere left to go. And the terrible thing, the thing I hated myself for, was that I understood it. Because 3 years ago, when she left, I had felt exactly that. Like the floor had vanished. Like there was no safe place left in the entire world. I turned around to look at her. She was sitting there in her ruined wedding dress, surrounded by fallen rose petals, the morning light catching the tears on her face. And in that moment, she wasn't the woman who had betrayed me. She was just Rachel, frightened, alone, and more broken than I had ever seen her. There's something I need to ask you, I said slowly. And I need you to tell me the truth, the real truth, not the version you've been telling yourself. She wiped her face and nodded. I took a breath. My next question had been buried in my chest for 3 years, and asking it out loud felt like opening an old wound with my own hands. But before I could speak, my phone buzzed on the table. We both looked at it. A name lit up the screen. Marcus Wade. Rachel's whole body went rigid. The blood drained from her face. He's calling you, she whispered, terror creeping into her voice. Daniel, why is he calling you? And in that moment, I realized something that turned my stomach to ice. There was a piece of this story that Rachel didn't know yet. A secret I had been carrying since the day she left. My thumb hovered over the phone. Marcus's name kept flashing, bright and ugly against the screen, buzzing against the wood like an angry insect. Don't answer it, Rachel whispered. Please, Daniel, don't. but I was already picking it up. I don't know why. Maybe because for 3 years, I had imagined this exact moment, the moment I would finally get to say something to the man who took my wife. Maybe because a part of me needed him to know that she was here, in my house, and not his. I pressed the phone to my ear. Cole. Marcus's voice came through smooth and sharp, the same confident voice that had stood next to me at company meetings, the same voice that had toasted my marriage with a glass of champagne while planning to destroy it. I know she's there. I said nothing. Her cab driver talked, he went on. Half the church knows she ran to her ex-husband's house. Do you have any idea how that looks? On our wedding day? I looked at Rachel. She was watching me with wide, frightened eyes, hugging her knees to her chest, the wedding dress bunched around her like a cloud that had fallen out of the sky. There is no wedding day, I said quietly. Marcus laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Put her on the phone, Daniel. No, this is between me and Rachel. You made it my business, I said, the day you decided to sleep with my wife. The line went silent, and in that silence I felt 3 years of buried rage rising up my throat like fire. But it was what Marcus said next that froze me solid. Come on, Daniel, he said softly, almost gently, like he was sharing a secret between old friends. We both know you found out long before she ever left you. We both know you stayed quiet. So don't pretend to be the hero now. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Across the room, Rachel went very still. She couldn't hear his words, but she could see my face, and my face had just turned to stone. Daniel, she said slowly. What did he say? I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking. The room felt too small, the air too thin. The secret I had carried for 3 years was suddenly standing in the middle of the room, and there was nowhere left to hide it. Daniel. Rachel rose slowly to her feet, the dress whispering against the floor. What did Marcus mean? What were you not pretending about? I turned away. I couldn't look at her. Daniel. Her voice was sharper now, frightened. Tell me. The clock ticked. The roses lay scattered, and I knew that the moment I opened my mouth, everything would change. So I told her. I knew, I said. The words came out cracked and raw, words I had swallowed 1,000 times. I knew about you and Marcus, before you left me. I knew. Rachel stared at me, like I had spoken in a language she didn't understand. What? She breathed. 3 weeks before you packed your suitcase, I said, my voice barely holding together. I came home early from work. I wasn't supposed to be there, and I saw his car parked down the street from our house, and I saw you, Rachel, through the window, with him. The color drained completely from her face. You saw? I saw enough. I closed my eyes. I sat in my car at the end of our own street for 2 hours, Rachel. 2 hours, just staring at our front door, trying to figure out what to do. Why didn't you say anything? Her voice was barely a whisper. Why didn't you scream at me? Throw me out? Why did you let me be the one to? Because I was scared. The words burst out of me, louder than I meant, and they seemed to echo off every wall. Because I thought if I confronted you, you would leave for sure. And if I just stayed quiet, if I just loved you harder, cooked your favorite food, held you a little tighter, maybe you'd remember, maybe you'd choose me, maybe I could win you back without ever having to hear you say his name out loud. I sank down into the chair, the strength gone out of my legs. So I said nothing, I whispered. For 3 weeks, I pretended everything was fine. I smiled at you across the dinner table while I was dying inside. I told myself I was being patient, but I wasn't being patient, Rachel. I was being a coward. The room was silent, except for my own ragged breathing. When I finally looked up, Rachel was crying, but they weren't angry tears. They were something much worse. They were tears of understanding. All this time, she said softly, I thought I was the only one who lied. I thought I was the villain and you were the saint. I spent 3 years hating myself for fooling a man who never saw it coming. She let out a broken laugh that turned into a sob. But you saw everything, she whispered. And you stayed. You actually stayed and tried to love me back to you. It didn't work, I said bitterly. You left anyway. Because I never knew you were fighting for me. she cried. Daniel, if you had told me, if you had just told me you knew, that you were hurting, that you still wanted me, everything might have been different. And there it was, the cruel, twisted truth that neither of us had ever seen. Two people who loved each other, both too afraid to say it out loud, both losing everything because of that silence. I put my face in my hands. 3 years of believing I was simply the man who got betrayed, and now I had to live with the knowledge that my own silence had helped push her out the door. We were both cowards, I said into my palms. You were too afraid to love me the way you really felt, and I was too afraid to fight for you out loud. Rachel slowly crossed the room. She knelt down on the floor in front of my chair, her wedding dress pooling around her, and she gently pulled my hands away from my face. Look at me, she whispered. I did. Up close, with the morning light on her face, I could see everything. The woman I married, the woman I lost, the woman who had just lost everything all over again. I made the worst mistake of my life when I left you, she said, her voice trembling but clear. And I told myself for 3 years that it was your fault somehow, that you were too quiet, too distant, that you didn't love me enough. It was a lie I needed, so I could live with what I did. A tear dropped from her chin onto the back of my hand. But the truth is, you loved me more than anyone ever has or ever will, she said. And I was so scared of that love that I ran straight into the arms of a man who never loved me at all. And today that same man showed me exactly what he is. I wanted to pull away. I wanted to protect the walls I had spent 3 years building, but I couldn't move. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I have nothing left to lose, she whispered. I have no wedding, no husband, no best friend, no pride. I'm sitting on the floor in a dirty wedding dress, in the home I threw away. There's nothing left to protect anymore, so all I have left is the truth. Outside, a car door slammed. We both froze. Heavy footsteps came up the front path. Fast, angry, then a fist pounded on my door so hard the whole frame shook. Rachel, Marcus's voice roared through the wood. I know you're in there. Open this door right now. Rachel's face went white with terror. She grabbed my arm. Daniel, she breathed. He came here. He actually came here. The pounding came again, harder, rattling the pictures on the wall. Open the door, Cole, Marcus bellowed, or I swear I'll break it down. And as I rose to my feet, my heart hammering, I understood that everything, the love, the betrayal, the silence, the lies, was about to come crashing into the same room, all at once. The door shook on its hinges, and I reached for the handle. I opened the door. Marcus stood there in his wrinkled tuxedo, his bow tie hanging loose, his face red and twisted with anger. Up close, he didn't look like the smooth, confident man who had stolen my wife. He looked small, sweaty, desperate. Where is she? He demanded, trying to push past me. I didn't move. I just stood in the doorway, blocking him with my body, and for the first time in 3 years, I looked Marcus Wade straight in the eye without flinching. You need to leave, I said quietly. That's my wife in there. She's not your wife, I said. There was no wedding, remember? His jaw tightened. This is none of your business, Cole. This is between me and Rachel. You keep saying that. I stepped onto the porch, forcing him backward, pulling the door half closed behind me so Rachel was shielded. But you're the one who drove across the whole city to scream at her on another man's doorstep. So clearly you made it everyone's business. Marcus's eyes darted past me toward the house. Rachel, he shouted. Rachel, come out here and talk to me like an adult. Lower your voice, I said. Or what? He turned on me, getting in my face, his breath sour. What are you gonna do, Daniel? Hit me? Go ahead. Do it. Prove you're not the spineless little coward who let his own wife walk away. And there it was. The old version of me, the version from 3 years ago, wanted to swing, wanted to feel my fist connect with the face of the man who had taken everything. My hands curled into fists at my sides. But then I looked at him, really looked at him. And I realized something. This man had nothing. He had lost the woman, the wedding, the friendship, the lie he'd been living. He had come here not because he loved Rachel, but because he couldn't stand to lose. He was the kind of man who only wanted what someone else had. And I wasn't that man anymore. I had spent 3 years rebuilding myself from the rubble he left behind. I wasn't going to throw all that strength away on him. So I unclenched my fists. "No," I said calmly. "I'm not going to hit you, Marcus. You're not worth the bruise on my hand." He blinked, thrown off. "You came here thinking you'd find a broken man," I said. "The same coward who stayed silent 3 years ago. But that man is gone. You helped kill him, and what grew back in his place doesn't need to fight you, because I already see exactly what you are." "And what's that?" he sneered, but his voice had lost its edge. "A man who had something real," I said, "and threw it in the dirt 15 minutes before he promised to protect it forever." "You didn't lose Rachel today, Marcus. You showed her who you always were. The wedding just happened to be standing in the way." For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then the front door opened behind me. Rachel stepped out onto the porch. She had taken off the veil. She stood up straight, her chin lifted, and even in that dirty wedding dress, she looked stronger than I had seen her all day. "Go home, Marcus," she said. Her voice didn't shake anymore. "Rachel, baby, listen," he started. "No," she said. "I spent 3 years listening to you. I gave up the best man I've ever known, because you made me believe I deserved more. And this morning, 15 minutes before I gave you my whole life, you showed me the truth, with my best friend, in the room next to mine." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "You don't get to call me baby anymore," she said. "You don't get to call me anything. We're done. We were done the second you opened that door for her instead of me." Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. He looked from Rachel to me and back again, and something in his face finally collapsed. The realization that he had lost, completely, and there was nothing left to win. Without another word, he turned and walked back down the path. He got in his car. The engine roared, and he drove away, and we watched until his taillights disappeared around the corner. And then it was just us. Rachel let out a long, shaking breath, like she had been holding it for 3 years. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for all of it, for Marcus, for leaving, for not seeing what I had until I'd already destroyed it." I looked at her standing there in the morning light, and I felt the strangest thing. The anger was gone. Not because I forgot what she did, but because I finally understood that carrying it was only hurting me. Forgiveness, I realized, was never a gift I would give to her. It was a gift I would give to myself. "I forgive you, Rachel," I said. She broke. Right there on the porch, she covered her face and sobbed, and this time I didn't keep my distance. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her, and she held on to me like I was the only solid thing left in the whole world. "I don't deserve that," she choked into my shoulder. "Forgiveness was never about deserving," I said softly. "It's about letting go of the poison so you can finally breathe again." We stood there for a long time. The morning sun warmed our faces. The roses lay forgotten on the porch, and two people who had broken each other in every possible way simply held on. Later, much later, she sat at my kitchen table in one of my old shirts, the wedding dress folded over a chair in the corner like a closed chapter. I poured 2 cups of coffee. She wrapped both her hands around the warm mug, the way she used to. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. And I told her the truth. "I don't know," I said. "Too much has happened to pretend we can just go back. The trust we broke, both of us, it doesn't come back in a day, maybe not in a year." She nodded slowly, blinking back tears. "But," I said, "I do know one thing. For the first time in 3 years, neither of us is hiding. No secrets, no silence, no lies, just the truth, sitting at this table, drinking coffee." A small, trembling smile touched her lips. "And maybe that's where everything real has to start," I said. "Not with a wedding, not with a promise, just 2 honest people, choosing to stay in the room instead of running." She reached across the table, slowly, and rested her hand on top of mine. I didn't pull away. Outside, the birds were singing again. The coffee was warm. And for the first time in 3 years, the silence between us wasn't a wound. It was a beginning, because some doors we close to protect ourselves, and some doors we open because we've finally grown strong enough to choose what walks through them. Rachel showed up at my door with nowhere left to go. But what she really found wasn't a place to hide. It was the truth she'd been running from her whole life. That the love we take for granted is often the only love that was ever real, and that sometimes the person we hurt the most is the only one brave enough to show us who we truly are. So let me ask you something, and be honest with your heart. If the person who once broke you showed up at your door, shattered and with nowhere left to go, would you have the strength to open it? And is forgiveness a gift we give to them, or the only way we ever truly set ourselves free? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it touched something real inside you, don't let it be the last one you feel. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that reminds you what it means to be human. Your next favorite story is just one bell away.